Welcome to Beyond the Message, a midweek space where we continue the conversation from Sunday's sermon, unpacking context, exploring your questions, and growing as we listen, learn, and follow Jesus together.
Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Message. I'm Jess. I'll be our host for this week, and I am delighted to be joined with Pastor Aidan Wivell, who will be leading us through this conversation, unpacking last Sunday's message from Miko Williams on Living the Samaritan Way. So Miko can't be with us today. She's actually one of our amazing high school youth. So she is in school, which is very important. Stay in school, kids. So Aidan, you've got the big job of going deeper and wider as we look at this message and the questions that people have sent in and their reflections on this message. But first, if you haven't heard the message, we encourage you to go listen to it. It's a great message. You can find it on our podcast channel, on our website under our sermons. Before we jump into the summary of the message, it is a bit unique to have a high school youth with no formal theological training leading a sermon, not only online, but in person across two services as well. How did this come to be? Can you give us a little bit of the behind the scenes of Miko preaching?
Yeah, it was a really unique thing for a 16-year-old to preach both services, preach online as well, and do such a fantastic job. So just to put it in perspective, like I've never seen anyone that young do that before at Windsor. People look at people like myself or Caleb or Ethan or Chriselle or Michaela who have preached in the past as our young speakers, which I take as a compliment and I appreciate it. But Miko is about half my age, so it's
Actually young.
Yeah, she's actually genuinely young. So how did she come to do that? Well, as I explained on Sunday, I first met Miko a couple of years ago and was just struck by her maturity, her passionate faith, and this sense of call that she had to share God's word. And then over the preceding couple of years, we've given her a few opportunities in different spaces to prepare for this moment. So last year, she preached a mini sermon as part of our online series. She's spoken and given testimonies at youth and at Lean In. So we've seen her develop over these years. And then in terms of this Sunday, this opportunity came about because there was a space in the preaching roster that we needed to fill, and we're wanting to be intentional about raising up these young speakers. So it seemed like quite a stretch, but I had a chat with Caleb, I had a chat with Grant. I think Miko could do this week. Should we ask her? And I got the go-ahead, so I asked her. And then the most important thing is that she said yes. She was keen to take on the challenge, and she knew it would be new territory for her, but she was keen to give it a go. So we worked closely with her and helping her prepare. And yeah, just blown away by how well she did and all the positive feedback we've had. It's been really life-giving for us as a church.
I think watch this space. She's going to be someone that's going to continue to bring us really thought-provoking messages from different perspectives. So I'm excited. She did an amazing job. I was very convicted and encouraged by her message. And so if you were to summarize her message, what would that sort of look like for you from your point of view?
Yeah, she had a very clear structure and 3 points. So I'll try to summarize them for you, Jess, and then we'll see maybe what else stood out to you. So first point was that love requires humility. Just to go back, she was obviously talking about the Good Samaritan from Luke's Gospel. And the first point, love requires humility. Second point is that God values obedience over knowledge. And then finally, Jesus redefines neighborly love. Great 3-point sermon and all really strong points.
Great points. The Good Samaritan, if you've been in church circles for a while, is probably a story you've heard at least once or twice, if not more than that. So what about this message struck out to you as different, or what was thought-provoking or inspiring or challenging that maybe you've not really considered before?
Yeah, for me, one thing that really hit me was that second point, obedience over knowledge. I think at one point Miko said something like, did the priest and the Levite know more about the law than the Samaritan? Well, yes, they probably did, but did they live it out? Not so much. And as someone who works as a pastor and who has theological training, it was very challenging for me to think about, maybe I have some knowledge about the Bible and theology, but am I living that out? That was the real challenge to me. It's not just about head knowledge, but about action. She also drew on James chapter 1, and she talked about that scripture where it says, those who look at the Bible and then don't do what it says are like people who look at a mirror and then go away and do nothing about it and forget what they look like. So that was really challenging for me. How can we be people who live out the very challenging things that we say that we believe? So that was the struck me. What about you, Jess? Was there one of those points that really stood out, or something else?
Yeah, that was actually the same for me, the obedience over knowledge. I don't have the knowledge. I'm someone that does struggle to remember the full ins and outs of the Bible. I'm not theologically trained. And so that's something I struggle with, but I love the fact that actually God just speaks to us through the Spirit. And I think he speaks to me through conviction. And people often think of conviction in such a negative light, but I see it as a good thing. It's that little nudge of like, Jess, you really should be doing this, or like whatever that looks or feels like. And so knowing that like, okay, I might not have all the answers, but if I feel that nudge, then God's actually prompting me and is with me in having that conversation or helping that person or whatever that looks like. So that was comforting and encouraging for me, but also challenging because it's that reminder that actually like God does speak to us through the Spirit and through conviction. And so am I attuned to that? Like, am I aware of how God is speaking to me in not just the big moments of helping people, but the little moments too, because they count as well. All of these examples are great in theory, but let's be real, we can definitely struggle to live them out practically in our day-to-day. We actually had 2 great reflections or questions that came in from our congregation. So I thought this was a good opportunity to jump into those and really get into the nitty-gritty because they are pretty big questions.
Yeah, what have we got this week? What questions we got?
The first one was, if next Sunday a man walked into church in the middle of the sermon and asked for help, would you stop the sermon to help them? It's a biggie.
Yeah. Okay, very practical question.
Very practical, challenges our responsibility, I guess the same as the priest and the Levite.
Yeah, so I saw the background to this question and there was some further explanation at the start around that kind of role of the priest and the Levite to lead worship, and then the tension between doing that for the community and also responding to the need of, a particular individual. So I think it's a great question. And my first response is actually, well, I've seen that happen at Windsor, and I haven't been around that long, but even just in my 5 years back on staff, I've seen this happen at least twice. And the message was paused while care was provided for the person in question. So my first response would be like, yes, but it's also dependent on what the need is and where the person is. And this comes down to the fact that as a church, we believe in the body of Christ. That as we respond as a church, it's not just the role of the priest or the pastor or the preacher, but the body of Christ that responds collectively. So that's where the beauty of care teams, prayer teams, engage or welcome teams who all wrap around and can provide a community response to need. But with all that being said, I totally agree that it takes priority in that moment over the message. And that's kind of the examples that I'm talking about. I remember, medical events happening in services and the sermon being paused, prayer being led from the front for that person while care was provided by, we're lucky to have a range of actual medical professionals who do come to church. So when stuff like that happens, there are people who we can draw on, who can provide specialist care, but prayer from the front and just managing that appropriately. But I do agree just that this is a wrestle. This is a tension for me as a pastor. We have a duty to provide, lead worship, to preach the word, to prepare sermons. And there's always that tension of like, I want to prepare a great message. And then someone comes and knocks on your door and needs help with something. So you pause that train of thought and you provide care to the person, but it is a constant tension. So I appreciate that question and something that we've seen in real life a couple of times at least.
Yeah, I guess we see it in the Bible too. You see Jesus on his way to places and the woman that touched his garment, right? Because she was so desperate for her. Am I right in saying her
Yeah,
bleeding to stop? See, my
yeah.
knowledge isn't great,
No,
but
you know,
sometimes
yeah,
it'll
yeah,
come back to me.
yeah.
And so you're totally right. Like, actually, it's great to have awesome worship that's planned out and we have the space where people can come and participate in that, but the need of the one is equally important, and we actually can learn from how we respond as a church to that as well. Like, that could be our lesson learned. That might be what God wanted to teach us in that moment too.
Totally.
And I love that you put it back on. We're fortunate to have an amazing care team and the resources is in place, but not every situation will have that. And so it's relying on the body to actually step into that place as well.
Mm-hmm.
Very thought-provoking, that responsibility over being able to help that one in the moment too.
Yeah. But like you said, when we see Jesus respond to these examples, he seems to have a tendency to pause what he's doing
100%.
and to provide care to that person at that time. And the Good Samaritan story, which where we're stemming from, that person did pause their business to go and provide care. So,
and I guess it's also about, are you able to help in that space as well? Like this morning on my way in, which is so funny that this would happen, someone was broken down in their car, and my husband and I were in our car, and he was like, I got to get to work. Like, I can't help. And I'm sitting there feeling so guilty because I knew we were going to be talking about this today. And I'm like, oh, is this God testing me? Is this a sign? I don't know. So we rolled down our window, asked if he was okay. He had help coming. But also realistically in that situation, my husband had to go to work. That was his responsibility. And I do not know how to help fix the car. But at least we reached out and checked in on him and he was okay. But it is tricky navigating that responsibility and then filling that need in the moment. But I guess that's where conviction comes into play.
I was just thinking that, yeah. Your conscience, your conviction, your spirit-led. And I know you're someone who always responds to that and who goes, oh, how can we help? Or God's put this on my heart, what can I do to respond? But there are different situations, right? Like, so yeah, if you were a trained mechanic, he might have been
look, that'll definitely be God saying, get out that car and go and help. But unfortunately for that man, I wasn't. So, but he's all good. His car's fixed. He's on the road. So we're good to go. The other question that came in was around, how do we balance helping others while staying safe? I see people who need lifts all the time, but as a lone woman, I have to pick up and choose. Daylight versus late at night makes a big difference. How does this fit into Jesus's Samaritan kingdom? And I guess this plays on Miko's point to the environment that we're in and that's around us at the time. What does this look like? Environment versus obedience.
Yeah, so just to pick up, first of all, on that safety piece, because I think that's a great question. And I will pass it back to you because there's a sort of a female element in there, and I really want to hear what you want to say to that. But from my initial reaction, and I honor the question, and I think we need to be wise about how we step in to provide care. But before we say that, I want to say that we're not called to a safe relationship, mission, journey with Jesus. The journey with Jesus is not set out to be safe in worldly standards. So that's going to sound challenging, and I'm not saying like single women should go and pick up, every hitchhiker. Not saying that at all, but I'm saying that our starting point should not be, I'll only follow Jesus if it's safe,
or comfortable.
Yeah. So our following Jesus has to take us out of our comfort zones. So that's just my initial framing, but I do think case by case we need to be wise about what we do. So as a female, just reading that question, what are your thoughts around that, and how would you decide when to help?
I guess my background is I'm a female, obviously, but I also come from South Africa, which is a very unsafe country, and so my mind is naturally always in like protection mode. Like, how can I be safe in this situation? What could I do to get out of the situation if it's bad? How do I protect my kids, etc., etc.? So like I'm constantly thinking like that, probably to the point that it's a bit far, but it's okay. We're getting counseling. We're working on it. But I do think I agree with you. We're not called to be comfortable. If we're comfortable all the time, then are we actually growing as people? Are we actually like the disciples weren't comfortable. They were called into very uncomfortable situations, and we are called to put ourselves second. But I also think God calls us to be responsible with what we have, and that includes our safety. That includes stewarding our money well. So I think, would I pick up someone? Probably not. That's the honest truth about it. But could I pull over and see if they need some money for a bus or something like that? Then that's probably where I would kind of try fill that need.
Yeah. And there's other factors to it as well. Like
Yeah.
I think the question indicated it might be different response in the day versus
Yeah.
at night, or maybe, if you and your husband are in the car together,
Very different.
very, very different situation.
Yes.
So there's lots of variables.
Yes.
I think balancing that safety, that danger and the risk. I remember last year our series on risk and reward.
Yes.
And that was one of the things I really wanted to push into was like, this is going to sound like a rant and a thing, but I just think like the whole concept of safety has been like massively pushed to the point where it's Jonathan Haidt, he wrote the Anxious Generation, and he talks about the worship of safety above all. And he's talking about raising kids and play and playgrounds and how they're all just made so safe so that kids can't take appropriate risks, which are important for their development. And I just felt that really spoke well into a faith space as well, about like, is our faith too safe? So, and I'm not saying like this is too safe. This is, we all need to take the same risk, but I just think as a mindset, let's see, what does it mean to follow Jesus and to take appropriate risks while managing safety? And maybe the pendulum's just gone a little bit too far one way. That's my perspective, but totally case by case as well. And I've spoken as a white male, who may not have to ask the same questions and have those concerns. The other thing, unless you wanted to say anything to that question, but I did want to talk about boundaries as well.
No, go do that. Yeah.
Because there was actually another question that came in. We won't address it directly, but it was related to the idea of the Good Samaritan. What if we're helping people and they continue to need help ongoing, and don't seem to be taking any responsibility for themselves? At what point is it not helpful to continue to help that person, to enable them, I guess? And the question kind of came around, boundaries. And I just remember reading in a book by Cloud and Townsend on boundaries, which is a great book and I highly recommend it. They pose this imaginary situation where the Good Samaritan story, and they kind of hypothetically extend it. And it plays out where the person who is helped, when the Good Samaritan leaves them at the inn and goes to carry on his business, they're like, why are you leaving me? Come on, you've brought me here. How can you leave now? I still need help. You need to spend more money. You need to help me with all of this stuff. And then the Good Samaritan goes, I guess if I really want to be a good Christian, then I'll continue to help and I'll spend more. And then they miss out on their own business and it negatively affects their life. And I feel like many of us can relate to that, where we try to help someone and then they continue to want help and we then continue to do it because we want to be a good Christian. But internally it starts to build like a resentment or an obligation. So I just thought it was like a really interesting example. When do we step in and help? And when is it time to allow someone to work out things for themselves?
See, I wonder if this all just comes back to conviction at the end of the day. Because the question we had before was around the environment of safety, but there's so many environmental factors that we've got to keep in mind. Our finances, like it's all good and well to give, but then if you've got nothing left, then you're just relying on others as well. So it becomes that exact same cycle. Or the time and the responsibility, like the Good Samaritan had to go and finish his work. Otherwise, he could have potentially missed out on business. And I think when you are in tune with what the Spirit is saying to you, then I think you have that awareness maybe more. But I also think relationally, it's okay to ask people. Like, I go to my life group and I ask them things all the time. Like, is this appropriate? Is this not appropriate? And we should be able to either encourage or convict or challenge each other in that space in a way that's safe and gentle.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, people do take advantage of others. This is very common. But not only that, we are in a world where there are needs all around us and you can't escape it. Like we can try and turn a blind eye, but you're not able to. You walk down the street and you see need. You go on your phone and you've got give a little pages here and there and charities reaching out for help and all sorts going on, but we can't do it all. We're not it's not possible for us to do that. And so I think when we're aware of what the Spirit is calling us to, I think we're all wired differently. Like maybe I'm wired more on the hospitality side. So now I've started doing meal trains where I can. And there's a lot of emails that come through for the meal train. And I can't say yes to all of them because I know my limitations and what's going on in my life. But it's my way of being able to serve in a way that I'm passionate about and where I think the Spirit has led me to help others. But that's not saying if something else came up, I'd just be like, no, it's not a meal train. That's not how God's wired
I do
me.
meal trains.
Like I think it's actually just being really aware of what the Spirit's saying. And I know that's such a cop-out because it's not always easy to figure out where or what the Spirit is saying to us. But I do think when we're led by the Spirit, by what God is nudging us to do, then, and we're aware of our boundaries and our limitations, whether it's to safety or money or whatever the situation is, then maybe we can help more. And more intentionally, which actually makes a bigger difference when we're intentional about it. So what does that look like then when we're being pulled in all these directions to know what God is trying to invite us into in those spaces?
I think that's a great example, of the meal trains. And I've seen a framework. I'll try to summarize it as accurate as I can remember. But there was sort of 3 areas, like a Venn diagram kind of thing. And one was like our giftings and passions. So for you, that might be hospitality. Then the other is like our opportunities, like what needs are we aware of? Like you might live next door to someone who could use help with food. So that's an opportunity that you have to serve. And then the final piece of the Venn diagram was commitments. So you have young kids, you have a husband, you have a job, like those are your commitments. And then where those intersect is like a perfect place for you to serve and help because it's like, it's an area of passion and gifting that you can do well. Like, for example, neither of us are great with cars. So that kind of situation where you see someone on the side of the road who needs mechanical assistance, that's probably I'm not going to best serve them.
Maybe I can go get them a coffee and drop it off.
Or there might be other reasons that you can help them, but generally speaking, that's not going to be a great fit. And then the opportunities, so what is in your area or your life where you can serve, like you have a unique opportunity to help. So you're part of this church, we have meal trains. I've benefited from that when we had Rio. So that would be a great one. And then, your commitment. So I think that could be a good way for people to think about where's God inviting them to serve. And like you said, that doesn't mean that if something doesn't fit that exactly, you just say, no, that's the only way I help. But it could be, your main way of contributing.
It's a great framework. And I think everyone can think about that in terms of their own life and how that could apply to them. So I think that's a great example for people to go and use going into the practicalities of living out being a good Samaritan in the everyday. Miko has touched on that we are called to love the Lord, our God, with everything, and then love our neighbor. And that being super important in how God, Jesus redefines what neighborly love is. And I think that was a really interesting point because it is sometimes hard to love our neighbors, especially if we think that they've gotten themselves into this mess or like they've gone and spent all their money and now they need food or whatever. And it's easy to be judgmental. We're humans. Like that's what we do naturally first and foremost. But I was really, I want to say convicted, but again, I see conviction as a good thing. I was convicted that actually my job is to love God and to give him everything that I am and to soak in who he is, to be filled by him. And that includes knowing who he is and knowing his intentions and knowing scripture and talking about that with others, because I suck at just sitting down and reading the Bible. But if I can talk to others about it and unpack it, that helps me grow. And if I'm doing that, if I'm being filled by God, then naturally I should be pouring out from that to those around me. And I think that's also another great step for people to start is, are you loving God with everything?
Yeah.
Because if you are, we can't help but love others, right?
Yeah. And I think Totally. There's the connection in that scripture around love God, love others. Uh, it's also receiving God's love for
Yes.
for you, for me, and actually realizing that He first loves us.
Mm.
He before demanding anything of us or expecting anything of us, He first loves you as His daughter, me as
Mm.
His son, and if I can receive that love, that's then the overflow which will allow me to love others, because I know I've been loved so unconditionally, and I didn't earn it or deserve it. And then that means I can be more gracious to others because they don't need to earn it or deserve it, because I didn't, and God first loved me. So I think it's receiving God's love. And the other point about the neighbor, which we often don't talk about, is it says love your neighbor as yourself.
Mm.
So it's not
So
just
good.
love God, love others, but it's also, I don't like it so much because it's like quite secular kind of self-helpy language, but loving yourself, or in a more Christian way, allowing God to love you and to see yourself in the way that He sees you.
Mm.
Because if you're just trying to give out love, you run out pretty quickly.
Mm.
So I think holding those things together will allow Good Samaritan type love to flow out of us more naturally. I've heard it said that it's impossible to go and spend time in solitude and silence and not grow in empathy for others.
Yeah.
Even if you go into silence and solitude, maybe having had a disagreement or held something against somebody or been really frustrated by a situation, in that time of prayerful solitude and silence, it's pretty impossible for you not to grow in empathy and understanding for that person. So sometimes, in order to love others well, we need to retreat. And this kind of gets back to our slowing down series that we did over summer, creating space to connect with God, out of which we can return and be people who are changed by the encounters that we've had with God.
I love that idea of spending time in solitude, and having the opportunity just to be filled by God and then to go out with that. But the Good Samaritan, we've spoken a lot about caring for people and how we care for people, which is awesome, and we should be doing that. But the story of the Good Samaritan is someone's walking past in the situation, in the here and the now, and they have a need. So how do we structure our lives to notice the need around us in the here and the now?
Great question. Yeah, totally. That's kind of your example this morning, right? Like something that you didn't expect and you didn't plan in the car park. How do I become the type of person who provides care, or who says yes to the conviction or the prompting of the Spirit?
Especially when it's inconvenient.
Exactly. Yeah, which it normally is if it's an interruption.
True.
So I thought about that, and I think kind of two answers, or two parts to an answer. The first one is margin. So we need to create margin, space in our lives so that we can step into things more often than not. So if I've filled 100% of my time,
Which we do.
so sometimes 120% of your time, it's just straight up harder to respond because you're rushing from one thing to the next. So you're not likely to notice something. And if someone directly comes to you for help, you're more likely, even if you agree to help, in your mind you're going, I need to do all these other things. So the first thing I think is just that slowing down, creating margin. There's like the 80% rule, where if you fill 80% of your time, you can respond. You've got 20% to respond to the needs of the day. And that ties back to what I was saying before about connecting with God. It's not just clearing your calendar, but actually creating space to connect with God, to receive His love in order to give it out. So the first one is margin, but I think the second one is also important. The second point is mindset. So when I hear this about margin and creating space, you kind of create this ideal that I'm just going to be this like Zen, calm person who has like,
if only.
I literally have no work to do, and all I do is just go around and just respond to the needs of the moment because I'm so present and so calm, and I've just offloaded all my work. Like in reality, we're still going to have a lot of things that we need to do.
Or things that pop up.
Yeah, and we're still going to get interrupted. So mindset and margin. And the mindset shift is this quote that I heard from Henri Nouwen, and he said something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing because it's a podcast, but he used to get really frustrated when he was working on sermons or doing his pastoral work, and people would come and interrupt him while he was working.
I'm sure you can't relate.
I can't relate at all. So he'd get frustrated until he realized that the interruptions are the work.
Yeah, so good.
When people come to you, that is the work of a pastor, to provide pastoral care, to pray with somebody, to help somebody, to make somebody a cup of tea. What makes writing a sermon more important than the personal connection? And so the mindset shift is allowing the interruptions to be the work or the mission or the ministry. So that not just for pastors, but for anybody, it's if we can posture ourselves so that we do respond well to the interruptions, because they will still happen, and treat them as opportunities, I guess, to show grace, to show compassion. So if you're going into it with that mindset, then you're more likely to recognize where God's leading you in the moment. The other thing on interruptions, if you want to be even more challenged, is
We love
another quote is how you respond when interrupted is who you really are.
Woo. Ouch.
So because we can often put on fronts, we can present a certain way, and then someone interrupts, and how you respond in that moment is kind of the base condition of your heart and who you are unfiltered. So, I mean, that's just a challenge, right? Because it's like, what is my mindset to interruptions? Are they an inconvenience or an opportunity? So I think both of those are important, like creating margin so we can respond better, but also changing our mindset to interruptions.
It's good. It's tricky. I think it's one of those things that become something that we slowly work on, that slowly creates new habits and mindsets. I think if we try and do it overnight, it's not going to work.
Totally.
Or it might work for 24 hours and then we forget about it the next day when something else pops
And your
up.
life experience would play into this because, I mean, you're a young mom of young kids. Interruptions, right? Like you must be constantly
100%.
interrupted. And that would be changing you as a person compared to what you were like before you had kids. You're a lot more used to interruptions.
Yes, I thought I was patient. I can tell you I am not.
But you're
But I'm
having the
working on
opportunity
it.
to work on it
Yes,
regularly,
yes.
and putting others first other than yourself, which
And I
I'm
think-
newer to, but I'm learning.
I think it's also knowing what's actually important in this moment. Like it's so easy, to be doing something and for it to feel so important. And then someone comes and interrupts and you get that frustration, like, oh, I'm in the middle of this, like I have to get this done.
Yeah.
But actually, is it that important, or have we just made it to be this huge thing? And it is a bit different for us in ministry because I guess we have that grace to see the need, notice the need, go and do it. Not saying that our work isn't important, our work is important, but ministry is a different field altogether compared to someone in corporate that's a CEO of an organization that if they get interrupted, it could be the be all end all. So I guess I like that idea of actually what is the margin and the mindset, because no matter what your job, no matter what you do, if we have those two things in place, it gives us the opportunity to notice the need in the here and the now, and to be attuned to the Spirit too, which is something I wanted to get onto because you, this Sunday, are continuing our Kingdom Come series. You're jumping into Luke, which verse?
We are up to chapter 11.
11. Yep. Gosh, we're getting through it. And the focus is on prayer, which is a great way for us to be in tune with what the Spirit is saying. So can you tell us a little bit about what we can expect from your upcoming message on Sunday? Yeah,
so we are back on the journey with Jesus, and we find him actually in chapter 11 of Luke's Gospel, pausing the journey for personal prayer. And then the disciples come and ask him, having seen him in prayer, knowing how busy he is, but how much he prioritizes prayer. They say to him, Lord, teach us to pray. And that's going to be the title of the message, Teach Us to Pray. And we're going to focus on Jesus' example of prayer, the Lord's Prayer that we call it, that he's given, and also a couple of parables that he teaches about how we can approach the Father in prayer. So really excited for that message. It's been great to chat through today.
It has been.
But yeah, I look forward to talking with probably Grant next week
Very
and
likely.
unpacking that message. So yeah, got to go preach that tomorrow and finish off writing it. But it's been great to chat with you today, Jess.
I think it's a great follow-up of this conversation and just another opportunity for us to learn from Jesus himself on how we can spend time with the Creator and be in tune to the Spirit and then be able to do his work as he calls us to do. We're really looking forward to hearing it on Sunday, so join us online. You can listen on a podcast at any time or come along to one of our services. As always, if you have any questions, reflections, thoughts that you want to share from Aidan's upcoming message, make sure you drop them to us, either pass it on to a pastor, make a note at the info desk, or you can go to windsorpark.org.nz/podcast and leave your questions and thoughts there. We would love to unpack them further next week. Until then, may God continue to shape us as we listen, learn, and follow Jesus together.